Hi, and welcome back to the Positive Prepper. This is the fourth video in the four-part series. So far, we've talked about food insecurity, the jab and elections, and of course, war. The main theme in the first three videos was not to be complacent and think that nothing is going to happen or to slow down on your prepping. I told my son many years ago that the right woman would come along for him when he least expected it. And that's exactly what happened. And while they are living their best life and experiencing joy, and they are expecting a new bundle of joy soon, the same thing can be said for SHTF, but with opposite effects. It could happen when you least expect it. And if you aren't ready for it, you'll be caught unprepared and possibly unable to survive it in the long term. But what if we're wrong? Before I get into that, let me share with you a couple more tidbits of information that you may not know. First, the WEF is encouraging two-way bridges for migration. They are trying to find ways for a total global divergence, where migration across borders is a normal thing, so that there's equity in opportunities for families and jobs. They are also against anything that undermines the government's control over data, processes, and financial systems, according to the Global Risks Report 2022 put out by the World Economic Forum. In addition, the report highlights how the fraying of the social fabric is right up there with climate change among top risks that the world faces. I wonder why. Second, remember in one of my videos I talked about food shortages and how it affects schools and prisons? Well, my daughter just brought home, and I will show it to you here. She brought home the breakfast and lunch menu from school for April. And for the first time ever, at the bottom, it says, due to product shortages, items may change. And then also, due to product shortages, breakfast items will change frequently. Okay? I have never seen this before on their menu. A friend of mine posted a shared video from a parent whose child was given moldy cheese, dry crackers, and a couple of carrot sticks for their hot lunch. So parents try to accommodate and send lunches with their kids. And this friend of mine, she actually sends extra lunches, homemade lunches with her kids to give out to the kids in need. But for many years, some schools have restricted even the food that children can have in their home lunch. You've heard of kids, I'm sure, having their home lunches thrown in the garbage because they don't meet the standards set by the USDA's Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. So even if you try to mitigate the product shortages that change school meals and menus, you may also be facing tough regulations on what your child can bring from home. Third, in China, Xi'an, Tianjin, Shenzhen, and Shanghai have all been in lockdown. In Shanghai alone, 25 million people are subject to indefinite restrictions. No one is allowed to leave their housing compounds except for the mandatory COVID tests that are required for every single citizen. And if you remember in my last movie, I talked about The Songbird. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's an excellent movie that is a good depiction of what some of these people are going through. The government is supposed to be supplying food and supplies for all its people, but so many are starving, living oftentimes on carrots and eggs. And if you test positive, you're sent to an isolation facility that is overcrowded, overfilled with infected people with little or no adequate facilities. Their zero COVID strategy is not working, even with the new lockdowns. 13,086 people tested positive, and though they were asymptomatic, out of 25 million. Now, I want to pause it right here for a second, and I want you to remember, as I'm going through these little tidbits, you cannot separate the oil from the wheat, okay? Your school lunches, the food shortages that are happening with that, the lockdowns that are happening in China, and we know that this new round is going to be coming here to America. You know, what can we expect from that? I don't know. But I want to kind of switch it a little bit, and I want to show you some of Cammie and how she's connected to certain ideologies that are infiltrating every aspect of America. So give me 1 second, and we're going to go to the dry erase board. And you'll probably see my kitty in there too. Okay, so on the dry erase board, we have Cammie right in the middle. Cammie Harris, okay? So Cammie Harris, her parents were active in Afro-American Association, and this was basically a communist group, and the hero of that group was Fidel Castro. Okay, the group leader of Afro-American Association was a man named Donald Worden, otherwise known as Khalid al-Mansour. He financed and facilitated Obama to be accepted at Harvard. Okay, he also mentored Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. They created the Black Panther Party, which was the model for BLM. And remember, in one of my other videos, I talked about Alicia Garza, who was one of the young global leaders, people from the WEF. She was also a founder of Black Lives Matter. Very good friends with Cammie. Okay. Another person that Kamala mentored was Latifah Simon, and she was a member of Storm Revolutionary Movement. And this was a Maoist-leaning civil action group that also took a trip to Cuba to support one of the few surviving socialist states. And she was her mentor. Okay. At one point, she dated Willie Brown Jr. from California. His campaigns were funded by pro-communist newspapers and Communist Party USA. Cammie's sister Maya was a very close friend of Steve Phillips. Steve Phillips was a member of a pro-Chinese communist group, the League of Revolutionary Struggle. Okay. Steve Phillips also funded voter registration drives to help Obama beat out Hillary. So we have two Obama connections to her. Okay. She is currently married to Doug. Doug worked for the DLA Piper. Okay. And they had a very pro-communist service branch that Doug was very active in. And their federal lobbying clients included Raytheon, where have we heard that before, and the government of Afghanistan. So we know that Joe is suffering from, I would say, the early onsets, if not later onset, of either dementia, Alzheimer's, something like that. And he was not going to be able to carry out, I don't believe, in my opinion, that he's going to be able to carry out a 4-year term. I just don't think that's going to happen. But since he's been elected, the socialists, Marxists, and communists who control CAMI, right, are trying to enact, they're going to try to enact provisions of the 25th Amendment. They're going to try to get him out so that she can become the first communist president of the United States. Okay, and I'm going to pause it right here just for a second. And if that happens, she will have very anti-American communist leaders in just about every aspect of government: Department of Homeland Security, Department of Defense, Justice Department, State Department, FBI, CIA, cabinet positions, etc. Okay. This does not sound like a healthy thing for our country at all. It takes us away from everything that our forefathers believed in, and that so many of our military have fought and died for, and you know, the civil rights movements and all of these things that people have fought so hard for could potentially be gone within the next, 2.5 years, 3 years. So just something to keep that in mind. But again, what if we're wrong? Let's take a little closer look at NATO. We've all heard about Article 5, which says that if one of the NATO nations is attacked, it's the same as attacking all of them and would be met with great force. We've also heard that the communists in Russia want to take over more land and return to their former Soviet glory. In 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, was initially set up to stop further communist expansion. Remember, we talked about the Truman Doctrine, because they were worried that the Communist Party was going to come and take over Greece. The Soviet Union responded with the Warsaw Pact in 1955 because of its concern that Germany would once again become a military power. This pact, the Warsaw Pact, was signed by Albania, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, East Germany. Now, West Germany had joined NATO. East Germany joined the Warsaw Pact. Hungary, Poland, and Romania. And this held until 1989 and 1990, when all the communist governments in Eastern Europe were dismantled. So if this is true about NATO, and it was founded to prevent communist expansion, why is it still in force today? And why isn't it directed at China rather than Russia? Russia is not a communist country. It is defined as state capitalism. There are only 5 communist countries left: China, Cuba, Laos, North Korea, and Vietnam. The only one of these 5 that could be argued against, if you want to argue it, I personally wouldn't, but it's North Korea. In 2009, all references to communism were removed from their constitution, and it calls itself a dictatorship of people's democracy. Now, I'm not going to get into the itty-bitty micro aspects of what the difference is between that and communism. Okay, you guys understand what I'm saying. Russia is not a communist country. Okay? Russia's 1993 constitution declared the country to be democratic, federative, law-based with a Republican government. Russia, like the United States, may not truly be a free democracy when you take into account silencing political opponents, prohibiting a free press, preventing fair elections, and amending the Constitution to erode freedom and democracy. And just like here, the media and large corporations rarely oppose both sides equally. So my point with that is, and I know I'm walking a fine line here, but if you're going to call them a communist country, then we should be pointing the finger back at ourselves. And I don't mean we personally, I mean our country collectively. NATO, by its very foundation, should have ceased in the early 1990s when the threat of communist expansion had been virtually eliminated. It may sound at this point that I am pro-Russian and pro-war, but the truth is there's truth to both sides that many people just don't know about. When we look at all the small degrees of separation between the elites and their inner circles, and as I just showed you with Cammie, okay, there's not that many degrees of separation between her and Obama and communism. It's hard to believe that there isn't some kind of underground government running things, and that can make it really difficult to find the truth, any truth. So going back to my question, what if we're wrong? What if everything we thought we knew about the WEF, Joe, Obama, Cammie, Russia, was all just in our minds? What if we wake up tomorrow and the supply chains are caught up and overflowing on the grocery store shelves? What if gas prices and food prices drop to pre-pandemic levels? What if Russia shakes hands with Ukraine and they sit down for some vodka together? What if we have a steady climate this year and crops grow abundantly? What if the pandemic just dissipates and numbers drop to zero and there's no more mandates or lockdowns? What if our schools recognize the parents' right to have a say in their children's education, and that race is just a word, not a differentiating stigma? What if the greatly funded police officers were able to decrease the crime rate by 95%, and our government built the wall and returned to very low illegal border crossings? What if people from all across the globe put aside their political, religious, and moral ideologies and sang Kumbaya together? What if the book of Revelations was just a story and not a prophetic viewpoint into what the end times was going to be like? From where I'm sitting, we're not wrong. We've passed the point of no return. We know what's coming and we have to be prepared for it. We've seen the storm swirling for years, always one step closer, despite the shaking of heads and the little voice of denial. Thank God, and I mean that literally, that we have ears to hear and eyes to see and brains with which to think. Through His grace, we are given the ability to discern fact from fiction and act upon it. It may not happen today or tomorrow. We don't know when or how. But SHTF is already happening now in little fragments of crisis. And just like little earth tremors before a volcanic eruption or a major earthquake, it is just a matter of time before the bigger SHTF event happens. Are you ready? I want to read you the scale of 0 to 5, and I want you to try to think about where you might fit in on this scale as far as how you're doing on your prepping. Okay? So 0 means that you are completely unprepared, you have no survival skills, and you have no preps. Number 1 on the scale, you could probably survive a couple of weeks in a minor SHTF. You have some food and water stocked up. You might have a first aid kit. You might have a way to heat the home or cook without electricity, but that's about the extent of it. Number 2 on the scale, you can survive at least a month. You have a defensive weapon, you have canned goods, bottled water, and you have a way to communicate with others. Okay? Number 3 on the scale, you can survive about 3 months. You're very well stocked pantry. You have a water purification system. You're part of a prepping group. You have multiple defensive weapons and freedom seeds. You're stocked up on things like batteries and prescription medications. So you're kind of expanding your prepping profile, if you will. Number 4 on the scale means that you could easily survive a year. And remember, with all of this, this includes grid down situations, because just about everything has to be looked at that way. So number 4, you have your long-term food and water supply. You have the ability to produce your own food, whether it's through gardening or small animals. You have a knowledge of natural medications and foods. You have a plan B in place in case you have to bug out of your location. You have a strong defensive system. Okay? And then number 5 is you have the ability to survive multiple years. You know how to store and harvest food and seeds. You have the ability to raise farm animals. This is on the level of full-on homesteading. So you're raising your livestock, you're doing your gardens, right? You have your cache of weapons, and they're staged and ready to go. You have the ability to generate power and store power. You can make your own clothes. You can tan animal hides. You have extensive medical knowledge. You have precious metals or other bartering materials. So, and these aren't clear-cut levels, okay? So there might be some things from level 5 that you're already doing, but you're not quite as advanced as level 3 in some other areas. So it's just to kind of give you a basic guide. Okay, so think about where you are on this scale. What skills or resources do you need to move up to that next level? If you are already at a 4 or 5, then I really commend you, because I know the work that it takes to get there. If you are at a 1 or 1, 2, or 3, I also commend you, because at least you are trying. You are doing something in forward progress in your prepping. We can't all prep the same. We can't all do the same things, because it costs money that some of us don't have, and it also takes a lot of time and energy that maybe people don't have the ability to do that. But as long as you continue working towards that next step, you should feel really proud of yourself. Maybe look at where you are now compared to where you were even 6 months ago, or a year ago, or 5 years ago. I look at where I am today, going on 9 years of prepping, like serious prepping, and I look at where it was before, and I am proud of where I've gotten myself and where I've helped other people get to as well in their prepping. So I just wanted to throw this out here. My point with all of these videos is that we can't be complacent. We can see the things that are happening. We know that it's going on. We have to continue doing things, because no matter which way this goes, it's not going to be pretty. Whether it's because of war, or because of the communist takeover, or the invasion at the southern border, or a complete economic or societal breakdown, we know that we're not wrong in believing that these are all possibilities. I personally feel that they are possibilities that could happen sooner rather than later. So we've kind of amped up our prepping. One of the videos I'll be doing this summer, we are going to be putting in an in-ground greenhouse. So I'm excited to show you guys that. We've been tapping maple trees. I think my next video, maybe I'll walk out in the woods and you can see all that stuff. But it's just important because I think that a lot of people, and if you watch other prepper videos, I do think that a lot of them are saying the same thing, that we feel like time is really running out. That clock is kind of moving faster to midnight. And so we want to make sure that everybody's where they need to be. What can you do? Look at your gaps. Look at your resources. What can you do to get up to that next step? Okay? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. My hope with these 4 videos was that we would have more of a community dialogue. But I do appreciate the comments that I've put in there. I'm trying to make sure that my volume is a little bit louder on this one. Hopefully it worked. And I just, with the dry erase board and everything, it's just more ways to show you how all of those people are so tightly interconnected. You can't separate that. And you can't separate them from what's going on because the degrees of separation are so small. I appreciate the new subscribers to this channel, and a huge thank you to all of you who have stayed with me. I'm super excited for the videos I'm going to be doing this spring and summer. We're going to be doing some hands-on prepping tips and tricks and how-tos. Really, the only thing I'm waiting for right now is here in Wisconsin, while the snow is gone, we still have frost in the ground, and there's not much we can do until we get out of this frost weather. So I'm excited for that. I can't wait to get busy. Stay safe, stay aware, and God bless.